Hi, I'm Tom Williams from the Mirror Lab at the Colorado School of Mines, and today I'll be talking about work performed with my PhD student, Ruchen. The title of this talk is Human Capabilities as Guiding Lights for the Field of AI-HRI, Insights from Engineering Education. So this is a AAAI event, and I'd like to start by looking at the AAAI Code of Conduct. The AAAI Code of Professional Ethics and Conduct says, and I've photoshopped here a little to remove extraneous text, that an AI professional should, one, contribute to society and to human well-being, acknowledging that all people are stakeholders in computing, and two, avoid harm. So the good news is this code of ethics works perfectly, which is why we never see papers at AAAI on surveillance technologies that would be used to surveil racial minorities or workers, and why we never see models published at AAAI that have any sort of demonstrable racial or sexist bias in them. Yeah, okay, so that's obviously not true. So maybe this code of ethics isn't working as intended. In addition, while a lot of the concerns that people have about some of the unethical technologies that are being presented at AI conferences like AAAI are framed in terms of the concerns about those technologies doing harm, critically, the people who use our technologies and who are affected by our technologies deserve more than to simply avoid being harmed by our technologies. Moreover, we have a duty, and apparently we've agreed by participation in AAAI events that we have a duty to positively contribute to society and to human well-being, and to improve the lives, improve the well-being of the stakeholders of computing, the people who use computing, those who are affected by computing technologies. So here's the thought. If we want to be steering researchers away from developing harmful technologies, maybe we should explicitly be steering them towards developing genuinely beneficial technologies. This would require us to cultivate a research ecosystem that recognizes the socio-technical implications of computing technologies. And idea, you know who has a lot of experience trying to instill socio-technical analysis skills into a population of recalcitrant and disinterested scholars? Engineering educators. All of us who are university professors probably have some experience trying to teach students about the socio-technical dimensions of our technologies. So the question here is, what if we look at the researchers whose professional field of study is engineering education and finding the best ways to instill technical and socio-technical thinking skills into their students and leverage those insights to see how we as a research community can be a little bit better about practicing what we're preaching in our research practice. And this, I argue, is especially important and relevant as an approach for AI for human-robot interaction, because human-robot interaction is a field that is inherently concerned with socio-technical systems. This is also relevant because a lot of the themes of recent AI and robot ethics research have already been well explored in areas like engineering education research. Specifically, people have argued that AI ethics research has followed sort of three waves. The first wave, moral philosophy, where we just think of things in terms of Kant and utilitarianism and these other types of frameworks for analyzing problems at arm's length. The second wave, more recently, is this wave of research on fairness and accountability and transparency. And much more recently, there's been a variety of research on social justice as a central perspective for effectively analyzing the ethical implications of computing technologies. And people in the AI ethics community have been discovering that maybe it is important to be considering who our technology is designed for, how those people are systematically disadvantaged by our society, and how the technologies we are developing may reinforce or subvert those disadvantages so that we are helping the people who need it most. And in the engineering education community, people have been looking at social justice as a central lens for teaching engineering education for quite a while. My perspective on this comes from my experience reading this fantastic book by John Lydons and Juan Lucena called Engineering Justice, which is all about their framework for engineering for social justice, which is a set of engineering practices that strive to enhance human capabilities through equitable distribution of opportunities and resources while reducing imposed risks and harms within specific communities. Now, disclaimer, John and Juan are from my University of Colorado School of Mines. However, I did not know this when I started reading the book, which was a nice surprise because it talks all about mines and the engineering curriculum at mines. Specifically, in Engineering Justice, John and Juan lay out 5 core principles for a social justice approach to engineering practice. Thinking about who your stakeholders are, justifying who your stakeholders are, and listening contextually to them. Identifying the structural conditions that either disadvantage those populations or otherwise shape their needs and goals and desires. Acknowledging our political agency and the political agency of the communities we're trying to help, and developing technological solutions that mobilize their power, or by mobilizing power in order to enable the effectiveness of our engineering solutions. Looking for opportunities to increase opportunities and resources for those populations, especially with respect to how their existing opportunities and resources are structurally constrained, and reducing the risks and harms that are imposed by our solutions in ways that are sensitive to the systems of values and what people choose to prioritize within the communities we're helping. The way we prioritize between ameliorating different risks and harms and whose risks and harms we are focusing on ameliorating is in line with the needs and values of the communities that we're trying to help. The key points here are twofold. First, the research we perform should be motivated by the needs of specific communities to help those communities achieve an equitable distribution of opportunities and resources that they would otherwise lack due to structural conditions. And 2, the types of solutions proposed in our research should seek to achieve this goal specifically through means that advance human capabilities. And in the Engineering Justice book, they specifically look at Nussbaum's taxonomy of human capabilities. Now, there's good reason to be skeptical about any taxonomy of capabilities because it inherently encodes the author's biases as to which capabilities we should focus on developing and are worth developing. And we talk about this and other caveats in our paper. However, I think it's a good starting point. So Nussbaum argues that there are 10 key human capabilities: having life of a normal length, having good bodily health and access to nutrition, having bodily integrity, that is being able to move about freely, be free from assault, have access to reproductive health care, the ability to sense, imagine, think, reason, the ability to feel and express emotions, the ability to engage in practical and moral deliberative reasoning, the ability to participate in affiliation with others, the ability to interact with and experience other species, the ability to play, and the ability to exert control over one's own political and material environment. And again, these are just starting points, but they suggest the types of goals that engineers and researchers should be explicitly be seeking to develop. Specifically, the E4SJ framework would suggest that we should be working to enhance these capabilities for specific populations that we can justify on a social justice basis, based off of the prioritizations and values of those communities with respect to these capabilities, with sensitivity to all these other structural and political factors. So hopefully this all sounds reasonable and you're saying, great, yeah, this sounds great. Maybe we're already doing this in AI-HRI. So we looked at last year's AI-HRI papers and we tried to very generously answer these 2 questions. 1, did each paper identify a specific community that they were trying to help other than HRI researchers or users or robots, etc.? And second, did the paper express any attempted motivation aligned with one of these 10 capabilities as far as we could tell? Not really. Of 17 papers we looked at, only 5 engaged at all with any of these human capabilities. Most of the papers last year did not attempt at all to engage with these capabilities. And you can see that these smaller bars add up to more than 5. That's because some of the papers that did engage with at least one engaged with multiple capabilities. To be clear, I am not really criticizing anyone here because pretty much all of my papers would fail this test as well. But it suggests that if we want to ensure that our technologies are actually helping to build an equitable future, rather than simply helping people who are already socially and economically empowered, one thing we might do is explicitly work to cultivate a culture of careful reflection in which we try to thoughtfully articulate answers to key engineering questions based off of the engineering education literature. Who is our technology actually intended to help? Whose capabilities are prioritized by our research efforts? And do our technologies actually help to advance those capabilities? This also suggests that maybe we should reinterpret how we read and interpret and enact and write our professional codes of ethics. Finally, there are a few caveats to my argument. And we talk about these in length in the paper, but briefly. First, mere speculation about the potential benefits one's work might have to a particular community without actually talking to that community runs the risk of painting a human-centered veneer over one's research without actually doing the work of actually assessing the alignment between research and community self-expressed needs, values, and priorities. That is, the contextual listening piece of the E4SJ framework is really important. It's not enough for us to just justify our techniques as helping a particular community. Those justifications should be grounded in actual dialogue with those communities. Second, researchers doing foundational theoretical work can't be expected to do deep participatory design work with specific communities, and there should be no expectation that their work should be immediately deployable in today's communities. We're doing basic research primarily in HRI, and our point here isn't to say that all of us should be doing rigorous qualitative research before every research project, but rather maybe it would at least be a good start for us to think about and express in our motivation sections who we could even possibly be helping. And even better, maybe we should be citing work that does engage in a participatory fashion, in a qualitative fashion with specific communities, and leverage that qualitative work as the grounding for our own technical work, even if our technical work wouldn't be deployable in the immediate future. This second half of this, the fact that there shouldn't be an expectation that our basic research is immediately deployable in today's communities, is also important in how it relates to our third caveat. Doing participatory research on technologies that can't be effectively and immediately deployed can be actively harmful. If you are working with a community that is systematically and structurally disadvantaged to develop technologies for them that can't actually be deployed, you are wasting their time and resources. Fourth, researchers could use the types of justifications we've talked about here to highlight potential pro-social uses of proposed technologies while ignoring potentially harmful dual uses by other communities. For example, justifying certain social media technologies in terms of their ability to promote affiliation among one population while ignoring the fact that they can also enhance affiliation for white supremacists. Or justifying certain computer vision technologies in our robots on the basis that they can help recognize users and make them feel more comfortable, while ignoring the fact that those same surveillance technologies may be able to be used by the police to harass and oppress racial minorities. So this suggests that we still need to be doing our good old ethics reviews and talking about the different possible negative uses of our technologies in our papers. But in addition to that, we should also be clear about how our technologies can actively help people. Finally, we engaged in a speculative exercise where we imagined what would our AI-HRI research look like if we were designing technologies explicitly designed to help marginalized communities. And a caveat here again, the speculation exercise was done without any actual dialogue with communities, but you can take that for what it is. And maybe we'll see some of these papers at AI-HRI next year. Thank you.